Hi, I'm Thomas Padlan-Malm, and I'm a retired postal worker, and I'm a member of the American Postal Workers Union, and since 2020 I've presented myself as a candidate for the presidency of the American Postal Workers Union as an opportunity to make communication with the people who matter, to fill in the gaps that their backgrounds and experiences may not have allowed them, that would help them to the righter decisions, the more correct decisions, as it came to meeting the needs and wants of America's mail delivery customers. But before I get any further, I want to talk about something that I learned, sort of an epiphany, when I used EDDM, the Everyday Direct Mail Program, to communicate with every P.O. box, both at my union's zip code and here at L'Enfant Plaza in Washington. Every single P.O. box was identified and separated from the zip code, came up with a number of, between those two zip codes, of about 400 addresses that I could deliver for a cost of less than $100. Now, when I looked at the response I got to the www.ifiwerepostmastergeneral.com website, it followed exactly what you would expect with a new idea reaching a new market. And the epiphany I had here was, if we took every postmaster across the country, 31,000 post offices or so, and we took them off the phone for that stupid telecom that repeats itself every single day for 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and we took that time and we had that postmaster visit the businesses in their zip code every week, they would be able to, with a goal of closing one EDDM customer every week. Over a 5-year period, we could have a realistic, trackable, attainable goal, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and trackable, smart goal, that we could support them with all the necessary materials to make a no-brainer decision by businesses in the community to use this in a very surgical way in their markets to build 2 or 3 more customers or clients every time they ran the program. Now, that can't fail. Now, to be sure, I don't think these people are evil. I don't think any of these people are doing anything other than their best. I think if you are a person who is taking over their father's business, you're going to have an understanding of what business is that's going to be a little different than someone who got into business at the entry level, worked their butt off, learned, was mentored, was trained, was educated, was competing for, was vying for, was trying to make an impact that would allow them to advance and grow, that people who take over their father's business never have to worry about. And that's critical. And it's a different perspective.
Part of effective activism that exposes flaws in the current structure, bridges information gaps, uses the power of stakeholders and workforce as they choose to think like owners and defend every office and every job in every zip code while restoring pre-delivering for America values to America's commerce.
If every individual with a need, cause, or just the capacity to do some good realized they could help themselves in a way more powerful than protest signs and picketing to make a difference, an impact, and be the powerful truth behind everything Thomas Padlan-Malm has communicated to the powers in Washington. With the campaign from August to Labor Day, Thomas imagines the power and value of everyday direct mail that boosts U.S. commerce, strengthens community businesses, and expands job growth across America, that reaches powerfully to the attention of the transaction-minded executive branch and all on Capitol Hill that matter most.
And you can see when that mail arrived, we got our baseline number of hits, but when that mail arrived, the few people who showed up, they were spending more time looking at more pages, trying to understand more about what was going on. They were sold on opening up a dialogue.
Thomas asks every postal worker, regardless of their role or position, to think a little bit about what they see every day. The average USPS postmaster salary in 2025 is reported to be $76,755. That means during a 40-hour work week, 31,000 postmasters or officers in charge are on a daily telecon going over a roadmap of metrics that have already been reported to the 31,000 executives on the call. This means an average of $37 for the hour of each teleconference that repeats information already distributed is repurposed to active revenue generation, which should produce a minimum of $500 in new and repeatable revenue-generating sales events every week with no added expense or workforce. The value of repurposed workforce expense should total $238.6 million from 4 repurposed work hours for each of 52 weeks at 31,000 post offices. The accountants can measure this as a gain. Selling the remarkable and peerless Every Door direct advertising medium to local businesses, if modestly successful, would add more than $10 billion in EDDM potential new revenue annually without any redline expenses, capital investments, or workforce and payroll increases. Local businesses and organizations using EDDM will see absolute and measurable results for every dollar spent, growing stronger in the local market while supporting the community post office's purpose. Greatest postal loss in history was $9.5 billion in FY 2024. This was the greatest loss in the historic 2.5 centuries since American mail delivery was established by the Constitutional Congress. This unimagined loss arrives 1 year after break-even was projected for the Delivering for America plan, and 2 years after reforms eliminated any causes for loss in the previous decade.
While everyone's going digital, smart businesses are going back to mailboxes. I just cracked the code on marketing my gym. While everyone's burning cash on Facebook ads nobody sees, I discovered EDDM, Every Door Direct Mail. For less than $100, my flyer lands in 400 neighbors' hands. That's real impact. A hard copy ad creates 6 times the impressions of a digital ad. 6 times. That's huge. I tested this against Instagram. No contest. Direct mail wins, hands down. It works for any business. Lemonade stands, lawn care, churches, local shops, you name it. Everyone wins. Are you a high school hustler looking for summer lawn mowing customers? A political candidate wanting to reach voters? Or a church ready to invite the whole neighborhood? EDDM works for everyone. Visit the USPS EDDM website, pick your routes, and reach your neighbors. No envelopes, no stamps, just your flyer. And we're saving local post offices while getting even better results. That's a win-win. I'm starting the Save My Zip Codes brick-and-mortar post office challenge. As Bernard Baruch said, millions saw the apple fall, but only Newton asked why. The 75th Postmaster General said, we can't compete with digital. But digital can't compete with your local post office. Let's make August EDDM month and show Congress that local businesses and mail delivery make America strong. As labor, as local supervisors, postmasters, and POOMs. As marketing genius that guides that powers of L'Enfant Plaza. As businesses needing impact, especially in these times, let's redefine ourselves in the true Darwinian fashion. Adapts as labor, organized to lead what business must be.
So as I look at this building here, where everybody has come to work, I also think about what it would be like if every seat in there, the people who owned it, ran it. And if the structure worked so that the people closest and most intimate with the work needing done had the support, had the training, had the proper motivation, and were provided with every skill and advantage that would bring them success. It's impossible to imagine it failing, especially when structured as strategic business units, starting with every 3-digit zip code in America, so those 31,000 postmasters can have influence, understanding that what happens in their zip code is so different from every other zip code in America. But first we pay for it, and I've already talked about how we do that.
Seem unusual.
And you know what's really kind of surprising to me about this is that what's really needed here is a way for people to coalesce and organize themselves to stand up to these individual accumulations of power. Well, as you correctly point out, like, where does the wealth actually come from? It comes from labor. So if labor gets together and says, we're not going to stand for this anymore, or if consumers get together and say, we're not going to stand for this anymore, there are way more of us than there are of them. The problem is that the weird twist in the wonderful world of the internet and social media is that rather than giving us a means to coalesce and come together, it's divided us.
Thomas Padlan-Malm says, "We can come together, as different as we are, in an August campaign that speaks from the mouths of local mail consumers, our customers, with a program that could make a meaningful and quite profound impact, if merely guided by as few as 310 employees." Culminating on Labor Day, this should send a single message in a language understood by the Postal Board of Governors, almost every member of Congress, and the executive branch. If only 310 of America's 31,000 post offices had one person embracing the August EDDM challenge, the September 1st message would be, here is $1.5 billion in topside revenue from no added workforce and no added expense. As stakeholders and employees, the message this sends is, we can do this better than you. Thomas Padlan-Malm can see the faces of all the customers that could use this as clearly as he sees the faces of his customers in the rural South Carolina Lowcountry after the 2015 April Fool's joke was delivered by version 2 of Louis DeJoy's disastrous try, heretofore referred to as DDT. An EDM campaign in the month of August will spur controllable growth for all the participants, bringing a win to the business or cause, while sending the undeniable message that digital cannot compete with the 31,000 post offices serving business, commerce, and free citizens equally. This is a strategic campaign, sending a sizzling shockwave in one typically slow mail month that will resonate through the foundations of Capitol Hill and a wave across all avenues of the American power structure.
Get involved and make your EDDM August help your business and help save America's most important institution, the United States Mail. I'm Thomas Padlan-Malm, and I'm a candidate for the presidency of the American Postal Workers Union, and I step forward with a new paradigm for labor that we might say Dr. Harrington underscores with her statements about how we can ensure America moves forward the way America can. Let's be the example. Let's be followed. We're going to talk about the United States Postal Service sort of as this old house example of how you actually, from the foundation up, build and restore businesses. We're going to look at one idea, one program, one thing that America could have done years ago through the leadership of its Postal Service to ensure every single brick and mortar post office paid its own way, all the salaries, all the rent, all the electricity, everything, all the snow shoveling, all the insurances. We have one product, the most overlooked product, the greatest single value that could be sold to mass marketers, to local small businesses, to chambers of commerces, one single product that can elevate commerce in a community, stimulate interest in an event that's about to happen, and do it less expensively than any other promotional medium available, with more impact, 6 times the impact of digital, to prove that digital cannot compete with the U.S. mail and the local post office. And I'm going to show you something here that we could have done ages ago. It falls in that category of Bernard Barak quotes, "Million saw an apple fall, but only Newton asked why." Let me show you a little what I discovered here that we can actually use, that every single postmaster at every single zip code should be able to do.
In March 2025, Thomas conducted a postcard campaign to 300 addresses in Washington, D.C. He also conducted a separate every-door direct mail campaign to an additional 400 addresses. EDDM reached 100 more mailboxes for 1/3 the cost.
To reach Capitol Hill with a small postcard cost 56 cents. EDM delivered 100 pieces more, without envelopes, labels, mailing lists, and very minimal, easy-to-follow preparation steps to gain greater results and undeniable value.
If you look at the days of the month and the hits on the website over time in the month of March, and on the 17th of March, we had 368 page views when typically we haven't ever had 200. We never had more than 100 and looks like 168 was the most page hits that I had up until that time. But in that day, when people arrived at their work on Monday and started getting their mail, there was 368 pages looked at. And of course, the average number of pages, 195 later in the week, we never had that many before. 177, we never had that many before. On the weekend, 219 page views, never had that anymore. And on the 24th, the EDDM campaign hit. And there was another spark. The 24th, you can see it right here in the thickening in the number of page views. And that was the campaign that arrived at L'Enfant Plaza post offices. That's the campaign that arrived at the zip code where the American Postal Workers Union headquarters is. And you can see when that mail arrived, we got our baseline number of hits, but when that mail arrived, the few people who showed up, they were spending more time looking at more pages, trying to understand more about what was going on. They were sold on opening up a dialogue.
The 75th Postmaster General said, "We can't compete with digital." But digital can't compete with your local post office. Let's make August EDDM month and show Congress that local businesses and mail delivery make America strong. As labor, as local supervisors, postmasters, and POOMs. As marketing genius that guides that powers of L'Enfant Plaza. As businesses needing impact, especially in these times, let's redefine ourselves in the true Darwinian fashion.
Now this one idea, we have 31,000 opportunities 4 days a week to build a new customer that would see value unlike value available through any other advertising and marketing medium. There's nothing that competes with the impact of an EDDM flyer, especially when it's a regular thing that people begin looking for. You know, they run it the first time, they'll get the same results as me. They'll get 2 or 3% phone calls in the first week. After that, if they did that for a year, every time they ran it, they would have to be very careful to make sure they didn't run it through all the routes, that they would go to a zip code and do it one route at a time so that they could manage the income. And I can show you this. We'll sit down at the computer. I'll show you on my income exactly the impact that EDDM can have for you, just like it had for me. Now, equipped with this, we save the Postal Service.
It works for any business. Lemonade stands, lawn care, churches, local shops, you name it. Everyone wins. Are you a high school hustler looking for summer lawn mowing customers? A political candidate wanting to reach voters? Or a church ready to invite the whole neighborhood? EDDM works for everyone. Visit the USPS EDDM website, pick your routes, and reach your neighbors. No envelopes, no stamps, just your flyer. And we're saving local post offices while getting even better results. That's a win-win. I'm starting the Save My Zip Codes brick-and-mortar post office challenge. As Bernard Baruch said, millions saw the apple fall, but only Newton asked why. If every individual with a need, cause, or just the capacity to do some good realized they could help themselves in a way more powerful than protest signs and picketing, with the campaign from August to Labor Day, Thomas imagines the power and value of every door direct mail that reaches powerfully to the attention of the transaction-minded executive branch and all on Capitol Hill that matter most.
Do you know, if we had increased the price of stamps in 2019 to meet the average price of the cost to sell a first-class letter in all of our free country, free nation, free trade states in Europe that we do business with, we could have generated $26.7 billion more in 2019 against the $8.8 billion loss. And even in April 2022, when President Biden signed the postal reforms, the Postmaster General Louis DeJoy was the first Postmaster General ever to successfully get the other side attracted to supporting. When that was signed, every single reason for losing money in 2019 was resolved. Every single one. I listened to the Postmaster General in 2023 explain that it was okay for 36% on time for letter mail in Atlanta because you can't compete with digital. Actually, when it comes to commerce, when it comes to the value of the impressions, when it comes to privacy, when it comes to intimacy and communication, there is no substitute for the United States mail. When I was working at the Lincoln University post office, a young kid came in and he had a large manila envelope, and he needed to have it posted. But he laid the envelope down on the counter and he said, I've never learned to address an envelope. Could you help me? And I did. Here's a college graduate who didn't know how to address an envelope. After I showed him how, I sold him at the time, a 49-cent stamp, and I said, now go write your mother. And he said, I write my mom all the time. And I said, imagine this. Your mom, she gets your texts, she looks at it, she's happy to know you're well, and then she flips on to the next thing. Imagine when she goes to her mailbox, where these days you're gonna get mostly sale flyers and invoices and bills, and she sees a handwritten stamped envelope from Lincoln University Post Office with your return address. She doesn't even have to open it to feel excited. And then she opens it and she reads it and she feels that you took the time to think of her. You could have sent her diamonds and she couldn't be more happy. He sold him the stamp. He went home, or went back to his dorm. I suppose he wrote a letter because he came back and he bought more stamps a couple days later. His mom loved that letter. She's probably going to keep them. And that's something that digital can't do.
Mr. DeJoy, thank you for being with us today. What is the cost of a first-class postage stamp?
55 cents.
Just wanted to check. What about to mail a postcard?
I don't know, ma'am.
You don't know the cost to mail a postcard?
I don't.
What if I want to mail you said 55 cents for a first-class stamp, but what if it's like one of those greeting cards, it's a square envelope? Then what is the postage?
I'll submit that I know very little about a postage stamp. I don't know.
Do you know about, within 1 million or so, can you tell me how many people voted by mail in the last presidential election?
No, I cannot.
To the nearest 10 million? Is that a no, Mr. DeJoy?
I would be guessing, and I don't want to guess.
Okay, so Mr. DeJoy, I'm concerned. I'm glad you know the price of a stamp, but I'm concerned about your understanding of this agency. And I'm particularly concerned about it.
In the structure, the Postmaster General is forced to endure pointless sensation, and these, ultimately, meaningless charges with one solitary motivation in her mind. Representative Porter invested the time of her salary as a government employee to blindside and embarrass the second highest paid of all federal employees through questioning developed by her staff, which we can presume are all on government wages, that add zero positive improvements or gains, using time that demanded fists full of other U.S. congressional salaries attending the committee as members, and of course, the salaries of all of their staff members, plus the staff to manage security at the session, the archivist staff and materials, the power to energize the nonsense, motivated by only one outcome, to gain more personal power by preying on the outrage of voters and willing media.
When Thomas Padlan-Malm got word that President Biden signed the Postal Reform Act into law, he was on leave. He was on his sailboat, Enigma, between an expiring slip in Bear, Delaware, and his boat's new marina near his reassignment in the South Carolina Low Country. It gave Padlan-Malm a chance to see what might come before he would go more publicly about the things he had been doing under the letterhead, indicating him as a candidate for president of the American Postal Workers Union. He began in 2020, before the selection of a Postmaster General, defining the mindset he recommended to bring righteous success to American mail delivery to all 100 senators who would confirm the Postal Board of Governors selection. In April 2022, all the reasons for a decade of losses were fixed with congressional reforms. Padlan-Malm used a campaign for the presidency of the American Postal Worker Union to expand his opportunities for communicating a better idea than the Delivering for America plan. He remained intentionally behind the scenes because his intentions were to help, and he also worried a public thrust for the office would harm new contract negotiations. After all of those issues, the greatest record losses per day began accelerating, exactly as predicted by Padlan-Malm in a letter to 104 of the most influential from the White House to Capitol Hill, and every appointee they set to lead and all governing and regulating powers. Through his campaign, Padlan-Malm hoped to introduce a new paradigm for solving the common problems that preserve the values Americans expect in their mail, to focus on solutions that raise the quality of living for just about everybody. From 2020 to 2024, Padlan-Malm had been active behind the scenes after having retained excellent legal counsel. He earned appreciation from the ethics folks at the Postal Service's legal department for his intentions to not blindside anyone harmfully through his communications. Each time a Padlan-Malm communication or document was shared, the USPS legal department reviewed it first. They were willing to guide communications away from potential concerns or problems. Padlan-Malm retained an exceptional mouthpiece that communicated a spirit for a structural change in the organization and a new focus on training, informing, and empowering. His ideas focused on rightly motivated decision-makers who think like owners and recognize the needs of customers in their delivery. He focused on the workforce as the primary opportunity for financial improvements, but in a more responsible and practical way than delivering for America's job cuts and an unmitigated tax burden that places on the rest of society. His ideas were referenced with peer-reviewed proof and supported by strategic best practices. In 2019, American postal workers delivered more than 95% on time in most places. This iota of fact creates different conclusions from using the total number that includes culture and leadership issues that are localized and needed individual correction. Delivering for America's approach from 2020 to 2024 made cuts that expanded workforce waste to further exacerbate the problem in ways predictable in 2020. We have a problem, but that problem is not the one anyone has thought to address. How can we survive as adversaries? You can trust that more traditional and deep-rooted labor management adversity will lessen the chances of flourishing. The workforce is the product. The company's plan must improve this by improving the system, the information, the structure, and motivations before all decisions are set. Padlan-Malm mailed a virtual manifesto for the United States Postal Service to the Board of Governors and over 100 other Washington influencers. The documents and letters were sent to the White House, throughout Capitol Hill, and to labor and the governors and regulatory commissioners. Across the board, throughout America, Padlan-Malm believes the first strategy for all of the citizen bread earners and tax providers is to be prepared always to think and make decisions like owners. That defends the value to customers and welcomes new opportunities. When organizations give a common focus and define purpose deep in a tradition of greatness, they have a rhythm as a team because they have a purpose as a team. Everyone has a critical role. When mistakes happen, no value is assigned to blame. Padlan-Malm says he did not enter the race to defeat reigning APWU president. He entered to start a different kind of conversation. Solidarity should ensure that we represent the consensus of members. He will focus on applying the footprint of the most righteous power of the American Postal Workers Union to ensure the best people represent a community's interests. His ideas should be encouraging to the citizen owners who are numb from bad ideas and the deeper losses than history has ever recorded in the management of American mail.
Hey everyone, today I'm diving into a fascinating concept that could revolutionize mail delivery in the US. It's called the From the Mailbox Out approach, and it draws inspiration from a surprising source, the US Army Infantry Squad. Now you might be wondering, what's the connection between infantry squads and mail delivery? Well, think about it. The strength of an infantry squad lies in its decentralized structure, cohesion, specialized roles, and laser focus on objectives. Each squad operates autonomously, adapts to changing conditions, and completes its mission with precision. Imagine applying these principles to mail delivery. Each zip code becomes a strategic business unit or SBU, much like an infantry squad. This means treating each zip code as a unique entity with specific needs, rather than a one-size-fits-all model. Local leaders get the autonomy and resources to address challenges and innovate solutions. This approach has several key benefits. First, it improves efficiency. By tailoring delivery strategies to the needs of each zip code, we can streamline operations and reduce costs. Second, it enhances customer satisfaction. Local managers can respond to issues more quickly and effectively, providing a better experience for everyone. Third, it increases accountability. With clear responsibility assigned to each SBU, performance can be monitored and improved. And finally, it fosters innovation. Local managers are empowered to develop creative solutions that might not be possible within a more centralized system. However, implementing this model isn't without challenges. We need to ensure proper resource allocation, maintain clear communication channels, and balance local autonomy with overall strategy. The current landscape of the USPS, including the Postal Service Reform Act of 2022 and the USPS Connect program, provides a solid foundation for this approach. By focusing on the individual mailbox, just like an infantry squad focuses on its objective, we can create a more efficient, responsive, and innovative mail delivery system. So there you have it. The From the Mailbox Out approach could be the key to transforming mail delivery in America.